Hi everyone, Laszlo's here, and in this video I'm going to explain everything you need to know about VLOOKUP so you can get started with it. By the end of this video you are going to be writing your own VLOOKUP formulas, and you will also know what causes those common errors that can be frustrating and how to deal with them. The whole point, the purpose of VLOOKUP is to look for a value in a column and return a result from a cell in a row where a match is found. This allows us to answer questions about our data. For example, if you have ever ordered a drink off any menu, you have done a VLOOKUP in your head. The whole point of VLOOKUP is to scan down a column until it finds an item. Let's say, in a coffee shop, you would like to have a cappuccino. Once we find the item, we go over to the right to find the price in a different column. And that's exactly what VLOOKUP does, and it always looks to the right. This was just one simple example to help you understand what VLOOKUP does. Within Excel, there are tons of possibilities for VLOOKUP. It's a very powerful tool. We can create relationships between data and lookup tables. We can also use it to search databases and tables to return information based on a name that we are looking up. We can use it for interactive reports and financial models. So there are definitely a lot of uses for VLOOKUP, even more than I've explained here. But let's jump over to the right of VLOOKUP sheet and write our first VLOOKUP formula. So there are definitely a lot of uses for VLOOKUP, even more than I have explained here. But let's write our first VLOOKUP formula. So I'm here on the VLOOKUP sheet and I'm going to write a VLOOKUP formula. And I want to answer a question, which is what is the price of a coffee mocha size medium? Now we have a coffee shop menu up here, and of course we could just scan down the column A until we find coffee mocha, and then scan over to the right to the medium column to see the price is $4.15. And that's exactly what we want to return here in this cell, in cell C18 with the VLOOKUP formula. So select C18 and I'm going to type equals then VLOOKUP, and then we will see the 4 arguments for the VLOOKUP formula. So we have the lookup value, the table array, the column index number, and the range lookup. Now, if this is the first time you're seeing VLOOKUP, those can be a bit confusing, so I've also provided a simple definition here of those arguments. The first one is the value that we want to look for. So in this case, we are just going to select this cell here that contains the word coffee mocha. So that will put a reference to cell A18 in our formula, and then we will go ahead and type the comma or semicolon, depending which operating system we are working on, and then the next argument is the table array. So this is the range that we want to look in. So we are going to select our entire range or menu here, in this case, which would be from cell A7 all the way to D14, and that will create the reference here in our formula. Now one tip, at this point right here is to hit F4 on the keyboard. That will create an absolute reference. So if we were to copy this formula down, our table array range will not move. Now this is not required, and I'll explain more about this when we talk about errors, but it's just a good habit to get into. If you are using a laptop, you might need to hold down the function key when you press the F4 key. So far we covered the first 2 arguments, and it's important to mention that VLOOKUP is always going to look in the first column of the table array. So we are looking for the cell in cell A18, and VLOOKUP will always just look in this first column down vertically, and that's what V and VLOOKUP stands for, is vertical. It's not actually going to look for the value in any of the other columns. The reason we select those other columns is because we are going to specify the column that we want to return a value from. And that's the column index number or the column number of the value to return. So in this case here, we want a medium, which is the 3rd column. VLOOKUP starts here. This would be column 1 of our table array, small would be column 2, medium is column 3, and large is column 4. So we want column 3. So we are going to type the number 3 here for the 3rd argument. And then we'll go ahead and type another comma, and the 4th argument is the range lookup. This is either an approximate or an exact match. Now most of the time when you're starting out with VLOOKUP, you are going to put false here for an exact match. Now that we have all 4 arguments, go ahead and close the bracket and then hit enter, and that will do the lookup and return the price of $4.15. To take a quick break, if you are enjoying this video, please subscribe to my channel. There's a big red button below this video that you can click to subscribe and also get notified when new videos are published. Thanks again, and now let's get back to the training. So we are now going to look at the two main causes of errors with VLOOKUPs. I'm here on the error sheet, and we are again going to do some VLOOKUPs on our menu. And we are going to answer this question, which is how much will this order cost for size medium. So we have what we are looking for here, and we are going to look up all of these values, return the prices, and then total it up. We might get some errors while we do this, so let's go ahead and write a VLOOKUP again, right here in this cell. This is going to be our lookup value, and then select our table array. Now, I'm not going to make this an absolute reference this time. Like I said before, you can hit the F4 key right here, but I'm just going to pretend like I forgot that step. I will type number 3 here for our column index number to return the third column, and then false for an exact match. Close the bracket there, and we'll go ahead and hit enter. So that will return a price of 240, which is great, but if we were to copy this formula down, we are going to get some errors. And you can see right here, we are getting an error in cell C19. If I hit F2 on the keyboard to jump into this and edit this formula, we can see that our table array, this range here, has moved down. It's moved down from row 7 to row 15, and that happened when I copied the formula down. And the lookup value, cafe latte, is outside of that range. We can see it's up here in row 7. So, VLOOKUP is not going to find this value because it's outside the table array. So I will hit escape now, and that's really the cause of this NA error for most part, is that VLOOKUP can find the lookup value. So let's jump back up here to cell C18, hit F2 again. I'm going to select my table array, so just select the text here. You can also use the shortcut here. If you click the screen tip, that will also select this text right here, and then we will press F4 on the keyboard. That will create the absolute reference. Again, we have this formula, and I'm going to copy it down, and now we get the result here. We can now see that we have this absolute reference. This way the table array will not move if I copy the formula down. So when you're starting out, that's probably the most common cause for errors, is just forget to make the table array an absolute reference, copy the formula down, and you are going to get some errors. Now, another common cause of errors is the lookup value doesn't exist in the table array. And that's exactly what's happening here. Ordering a dark rum in a coffee shop might not be the best place to do so. So unfortunately, this is not going to return a result here because rum is not on this list. It's nowhere in this list, so VLOOKUP is going to return an error. Now we can handle those errors with the if_error function, and I will talk about that in a separate video. To fix this for now, let's change this to an item that is in the menu. So let's look up espresso instead. And now you can see we are getting the results of the price for the size medium. And then finally, down here, we are still getting an error for this Americano. And of course, Americano is in our table array. So why is this happening? Well, another common reason is that there is a space at the end of this phrase. So if I just double click into the cell or hit F2, you can see the text cursor blinking right there. And there's actually an extra space at the end of the phrase or the end of the text, and that's causing this to not be an exact match. So extra spaces in your text, whether they are in the lookup formula here or in the table array, you could have spaces at the end of these words as well. That's going to cause a mismatch in the lookup value and return that error. So of course, we need to fix that. There's many ways to do that, but for right now, I'm just going to delete that extra space and hit enter, and now we can see we get our results right here. So that should help you with the most common types of error when you're starting out with VLOOKUP, because of course it can be frustrating when you get errors, but that will help you resolve the majority of them. So now we just want to get a quick total here. We can select cell C23, use the AutoSum function. If we go to the home tab of the ribbon, and then we go right here to the AutoSum button, we can just click that. Keyboard shortcut is Alt+= on Windows and Command-Shift-T on Mac. We are now going to look at how to create relationships between tables and write VLOOKUPs to look at data on other sheets. We want to bring in some data from some lookup tables over here on this lookup table sheet. So we have some lookup tables over here. We have a list of product names and the categories that those are grouped in. We will go back over the relationship sheet, and we are going to use a VLOOKUP formula to pull in that information. So in this example here, we want to look at the product name and return the product category. we are just going to type VLOOKUP open brackets. Our lookup value will be this product name here, and then now we are going to jump over to the lookup table sheet, and we are just going to select our table array. Now, when your lookup table or your table array has a lot of columns, sometimes it can be difficult to figure out which column index number we need to use. However, there's a little screen tip there that appears in the bottom right of our selection that says 10R by 2C. And that 2C tells us that this is, in our case, the second column that we have selected. So that's just a nice little tip there, makes it really easy, especially if you have dozens or even hundreds of columns within your dataset. Our column index number is going to be 2 for the second column, and we are looking for an exact match. Now we can copy this formula down. Just select the cell, double click the fill handle, and that will copy our formula down. And we have now created a relationship between this data table and the lookup tables. And when I say relationship, what I really mean is that this allows us to group our data, and then if we were doing some summary reports or pivot tables, we could then quickly create a summary report based on our group date. And when I say relationship, what I really mean is that this allows us to group our data, and then if we were doing some summary reports or pivot tables, we could then quickly create a summary report based on our group data. Alright, so I hope this video has helped to get started with VLOOKUP. I highly encourage you to practice, even go back and rewatch this video, and it will definitely get easier over time. Now if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below this video. Don't forget to like the video and hit the subscribe button. See you in my next video.